Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Leah Johnson, and welcome to Take a Space Podcast. Before we hop into the show, I just wanted to give you a brief word from today's sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Omio. Omio is a travel booking platform that makes planning a journey in Europe and North America effortless. Just enter your travel details, and Omio will magically give you all the train, bus, flight, and ferry options for your journey. It's never been simpler to book your first real vacation in 2021. Best of all, using Omio saves you time and money. That's a win-win in our books. Omio wants to help you leave your house behind this summer by offering you 5% off your next booking. Just head to omio.com and use the code OMIO5, that's OMIO 5, at checkout, valid until July 31st for new users on all modes of transportation. It's just the pick-me-up 2021 needs. Omio. Plan, book, and love the journey. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Omio, for sponsoring this episode. And now, here's our show.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So typically in life, there is a place where you start and then you begin to level up. And when you level up, you have to develop a new character to be successful in that next level, right? And so how do you know when you're about to level up?
Oh. I think I know when I'm about to level up because I feel like I'm on the precipice of something that makes me nervous. To me, the idea of leveling up sort of sounds to me a lot like that growth moment where you know you're about to step out into something you're not sure that you're going to be successful at.
Mm-hmm.
And that it really is that self-trust moment, right? That's kind of what I feel like leveling up is to me. And I think it's something that I've experienced a bit recently where I've left a long time job, gotten to a brand new place where a lot of the knowledge from that old job is helpful, but it's only a tiny part of what I'm doing now. And so much of it is growth stuff. And I constantly find I'm having conversations and stepping into rooms where I don't know what the outcome's going to be. And it all just feels like growth. And it's getting that comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how you know you're leveling up, is that where you know you're uncomfortable, but you know it's going to be good for you. That makes sense. I don't know. That kind of got rambling.
It absolutely does, because that's kind of where I'm at right now with this new position. It's just like, hold on. Are you me? You sure? No, but I absolutely understand. Like that. It's just like, well, Leah, we want you to go ahead and lead this. I'm sorry. Who?
Yeah. Is there a Leah behind me? Yeah.
You want this to take the lead on this? Oh, you trust me with that? Oh, yes. And taking all that new knowledge it's very eye opening, and I do completely understand that nervousness, because that nervousness that you have, somebody called it out and was just like, I said, yeah, I just got the new position and they haven't fired me yet. Since I haven't been fired, I think I'm good. And actually Desmond of Independent Thought Podcast was like, oh, that imposter syndrome is starting to set in. And I was just like,
yeah,
oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I was about to say those same two words, imposter syndrome, because
yes,
I've had that feeling the whole time lately too. I'm in this room with all these other people and I think one of these things is not like the others, looking around the room going, why am I in here? You know, do I belong in the room where there's like this director and some senior accountants and, you know, some really heavy hitting people? And I just feel like I've kind of wandered off the street into this room, and then people all of a sudden will ask me a question, look at me. And I think, oh God, what? Do you really want my opinion? You know,
right? Does my voice have that much value? Like, are you sure? Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, everyone else in the room believes that, except me. So the problem's not them, the problem's me, and that I've got to be comfortable being in that room and knowing that that's the growth step. You know. And I'm welcomed into that room because I haven't shown that I don't belong. I haven't hit some ceiling yet. They're welcoming me to grow with them.
All this, like, this is great new perspective, because I never thought about it like that. But thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I'm your host, Leah, joined this week by Matty C of AstroLeague. Welcome to the show.
G'day. Oh, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me on after you were so gracious to come on an American football sports podcast from Australia. It is great to come and visit you at your place.
No, absolutely. I couldn't wait for this to happen.
Really?
It's that thing of just like, but would he want to be on the show? I'm not sure if my show is good enough. And that's where like that whole thing was playing in my head. It wasn't, I was just like, oh, is he going to want to be on the show? Yeah.
Oh gosh, now this is the other way around. Is your show good enough for? Oh gosh, no. Okay, so it was a bit the other way around. I'm like, now why would someone who runs a beautiful, this whole discourse of champions, array of shows and content that you guys provide? I think, what on earth is she doing accepting an invitation to talk to an Australian about fantasy American football? Why is she coming on this show? So to me, it was the other way around, 100% the other way around.
That's so weird. And I think it's just like the images that we build up in our mind of, am I good enough to be in this space versus is the space conducive for me? Because just like you said, when we're in those boardrooms or with the other people or with our groups, whether it's professional, social, what have you, we have this image of who we are and whether or not we fit. But the other group or the rest of the group is like, no, yes, come on, join. Like, you belong here.
Yeah, and we don't believe the group. Isn't that the oddest thing? There's all these other opinions saying, we totally need your feedback. You need to be in this group. We need your input. We want to talk to you about it. And the only person who doesn't believe it's you. It's the oddest thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like whenever there's a group that says, hey, no, we want you. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, you sure you want me? So something's got to be going on with you if you want me.
Well, yeah, I relate to that 100%. And I found myself in a similar position to you then. You're in a new position and I'm in a new position professionally in, our lives outside of being podcasters. And I find the same thing, that I know that there's some really basic stuff that I can bring understanding to the other people in the room who don't have the same sort of background that I do. So I can bring some useful knowledge to them.
Absolutely.
But I'm just not used to working at that level. I guess I'm kind of more used to being at you're a doer. And then in that group of doers, you might have an opinion amongst those doers who reports into like some manager. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of not used to then being that next layer up where you're the manager who then has the influence to go and help direct strategy and talk about, approach and all these things. Okay. And I mean, I'm in a sales-based sort of background, so if that helps add some context to it. And it's just not used to being at that next level up, as you put it, because I feel like I've gotten so comfortable and happy with being at that doer level to not be at let's help build it and build the strategy and the plan to then go do.
Ooh.
That's been the bit where I've had to sort of readjust my brain and go, all that experience from down there I need to bring up to here. Really, I haven't proven to myself I can't do that. Everyone else in the room believes I can do that. I need to start believing that.
You know what? I don't think I've ever tried to work out articulating those feelings or what that looks like. Because it is that you go from entry level to management to at a level of being able to affect decisions that are that the company would use. And this means that the work that you do, your word is going to hold way more weight, and a lot more responsibility is on you. But you've proven at the previous level that you can do it, that you're more than capable.
100%. And I think the thing that my specific situation is I come from a humongous company to this smaller family-owned business.
Okay.
And that part of the group in the room is that I'm talking to this guy who's the owner as well. So it's like I'm influencing how he's spending his own money in this business. He's only just invited me to come and join. And I kind of feel like, wow, this guy's trusting me a lot. Like, I put the pressure on me to not be wrong about this then, because I guess there's a bit more security and safety being in a bigger place where the mistakes can pay for themselves if you if you work in a big enough place, you can make
Right.
10 mistakes, but if you get 2 things right, it will pay for the 10 mistakes. And you
Right.
just don't get that kind of luxury in a smaller business where they just don't have the level of investment, and the return on the investments are just not nearly going to be as big. I mean, so I guess you scare yourself sometimes into, well, what are the impacts of this guy listening to me?
Right.
I'm at that level too. I've really tortured my brain, Leah.
Right. Be like, okay, so if we have a down quarter, like the quarter after I join,
How bad can it get?
how am I going to recover? Do I need to update my resume? What's going on? Should I consult other people? What's happening? Absolutely. I have now I'm in finance, and I'm in a similar role where, well, I'm in a role as a more of an operations manager for quality control. And so even though in my mind, I I walk on pins and needles as if I'm going to be fired soon. But I'm really good. Like, I'm really good at my job, and the numbers prove it. Where we went from, we were able to minimize, or like we were able to decrease the number of errors we had by like 91% from June to July. And so I was just like, no, I'm capable. This is cool. Like, we're good. And I think that I have to start looking at those pieces of affirmation to say, yeah, you know what you're doing. You're obviously qualified for what you're doing because it's working.
Oh, look, to me too, if you work in finance, your brain would really love, and I started a little while ago talking about me and my brain like they're separate things. And I think that's really helped me. And it sounds dumb. I don't know. It probably sounds really dumb, but I think once I've started thinking about my brain as, oh, well, my skin likes when I rub lotion on it. My beard likes when I, trim it and wash it. My brain likes when I can track things and I can see that there's tangible result for my effort. When I can see the improvement, my brain goes, oh, dopamine, hello. That's so great. What a terrific feeling to see the effort that you're putting in has a tangible benefit. And if I ever work somewhere where I couldn't set that up to see at the end of my day, week, month, whatever time period, if I couldn't have some scoreboard for my brain to be like, here's the difference you made, I couldn't stay in the job. I just couldn't do it. My brain needs it. It seeks it in everything I do. And this is why I'm running a fantasy football podcast, is because it started with, apparently I don't get enough of this stuff at work. Now in my spare time, I play fantasy football and I rank myself by playing against mates. And if I beat them, that's good for my brain. And if I don't beat them, I can learn the lesson from that. And I can reinvent my team. And it's just me and my brain seeking that hit over and over that same way. And I just need to find new creative ways to give it that hit. It took me ages to work out. That's why I'm like that. And now that I have, my brain's so happy because I know how to keep it happy.
See, I used to think that I was weird for thinking that, but I think about it the same way, where I have to understand why I think the way I think. It's kind of like meta thinking. Okay, so what is this thought we have? Are we trusting this thought? How can we see this thought? Is this thought reinforcing negative or positive behaviors? Is this thought going to help me in my character building, or is this something that we can just like let fly by? So what I realized about my brain is that whatever thought that I have, if I keep it, my brain will look for confirmation to reinforce it. And it's like, okay, so if I think that I'm really good at this, I'm awesome at this thing. I love to write. Writing is great. Every time I write, dopamine rush. Like, this is great. Like, I love it. And then when I don't get to write, it's like, I kind of want to write. Like, you start getting itchy, you need to write. But if I think that I'm, terrible at math, anytime I see math and I get a math problem wrong, no matter how many I got right, my brain is just going to reinforce, we're terrible at math. Why are we doing this? Until I have like some physical reaction where I get anxiety or whatever about doing math. So I think about it in the way that I had to understand how my brain processes different scenarios and different thoughts, so that when I'm engaging in different things physically, I know how my mind and body are reacting to those, so that the image, just like we talked about earlier, do I belong? What kind of image do I have of myself in my mind that makes me think that? And then, and when I see
the evidence points to a different thing, right? You're saying, oh man, I can get a whole bunch of maths questions right, but as soon as I get one wrong, it's like, there it is. That's the terrible at maths part.
Yes, exactly.
The image you've got, yeah.
Yeah. And you gotta, once you figure out how your mind works, you got to figure out how to challenge it. It's like, am I really that bad at math? Well, let's see how far. I may not be calculus ready, but I can add and subtract. I know how to multiply. I can divide. I can do basics. I can balance a checkbook. And just looking for those things of confirmation. Like I may not be able to be a mathematician or, the greatest dancer ever, but I can engage in this activity and it not cause me to seize up every time it comes around,
Yes. But I mean, that's the extreme physical reaction to that, though, isn't it? Because I mean, I've definitely been in that space too before, where you get so worried about, well, what's exposure to the thing I've talked myself to the edge of being horrible at, and then you avoid it to only keep your brain away from feeling that danger of being in a spot where you're going to show weakness or lack of confidence or lack of ability. And that's a wonderful protection mechanism to avoid that altogether. But then the time for it comes up in a high stakes environment because you've been avoiding it, and that's the big physical reaction to it, is just to make yourself so sick, stressed, sometimes really unwell about it, just from this wonderful protection mechanism all of a sudden kind of showing up its great weakness. Yeah, 100%. And I've definitely been in that space before.
So how do you then go about reconstructing the image? If you found, right now we're both in a situation where we're trying to figure out professionally, do we belong, or, am I capable? So how do you then challenge the image that your brain has created?
Oh, isn't that just $1 million question, right? Because if you could just flick this switch and tomorrow you could turn up to work and be like, right, so yesterday's Leah, yesterday's Matt, who was stressed about not fitting into the room. Today, I'm just going to walk in there and own the room, and I'm just going to fit in, and I'm going to be really comfortable exposing myself to things that make me uncomfortable that I don't have the confidence I can do. I'm going to put my 2 cents into things where I can see that I'm the 6th most credible person in the room of 6 to talk about it, but I'm going to put my 2 cents anyway because I'm confident. If you could flick that switch, you'd just do it, right?
Right.
I don't think there's any silver bullet on that. I guess, like, having come from somewhere where I had been working in one role or one level of role for a very long time, and then coming to this newer spot where I've just got all this new exposure to things that are new and scary, but they are definitely, man, they're kind of everything I ever needed to prove to myself that, yeah, I can grow into that person. And I can hit the point where I fail and I can't do more without, I don't know, doing another bit of study or maybe taking a more specific job to get myself extra skilled in that before I can be really successful at it. But I don't know those limits. And I guess it's that bravery point of being like, well, am I going to avoid them, knowing that I will one day hit that precipice and feel very sick that I didn't do anything about trying to learn about it on the way? Or when am I ever going to get a better chance now where everybody knows that I'm coming into this role for growth to just take little bites? And if I can just take little bites all the time and build that confidence slowly in an environment where everybody knows I'm here they all know my background. They all know I've come from a different company where I worked at this level. Everybody knows that. Nobody thinks I'm this person in the room. Like, they just don't think I'm experienced at that because they all know I've got permission. Everybody in the room's given me permission to say the dumb thing, ask the silly question, to ask something maybe obvious. Isn't that one too, where you go, do I ask this question? Is this too obvious?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm just
Am I going to look like a clown?
Can you tell me
Yeah.
what that stands for, please? Because I don't.
A
We're
clown?
talking in code here. Like, like? I'll ask those questions. Like, what does it stand for? Why do we do
Yes.
this? What numbers are we using? What script are we reading from, guys? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So I guess it took me a little while to kind of get over the imposter syndrome of being like, well, that was the dose. That was the step of being like, well, actually, okay, so it says this role on my business card. Everybody knows I'm not that experienced at this role, and they all know I'm here to grow. And every day that I don't ask the question, every day that I don't expose myself to learning something that I probably don't need to know today, but I'll need in the future. Every day I don't expose myself to those is just a waste. It's just such a waste. Because, I don't know, I may be in this company like my last one for 10 years plus. I might only be here for a year. I don't know. But I'm never going to get a better chance to just grow and have everybody's permission to just grow. So if I waste a day of it, it's me who suffers. Nobody else really suffers the way I will.
Right.
Because the company can hire another chump like me if they want. I can't get this job where it's almost like a startup in the way this business is built too. So I kind of don't have a baseline for what this person's like in their company structure either. So I kind of get to build that as I go. And if I don't take the opportunity, it's wasting for me. It's probably wasting it for the company too. Because then I'm probably giving them a false impression of the sort of person they need to hire when I'm not there in the future at some point.
Yeah. It's weird how similar our situations are, but it's such an amazing experience to be in a group where they give you that permission to ask all the questions that that seems unnecessary, or to be able to come in and say, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, or can you please explain to me? I know this. What I don't know is this. Can you make that make sense to me? Like, can you connect the dots for me? Or being able to tell someone, I know we went over this like 3 weeks ago, but I haven't used it. So if you can tell me how to do it one more time, my notes, I promise, will be a little bit clearer. Like being able to have that permission to ask those questions, it doesn't come by very often. And the team that I'm on is a newly established team. Like the department has been there, but because of the errors and whatnot, they wanted to have another team that does quality control. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is great. And, because they know that I'm not from this, or I never did commercial banking. They're like, hey, ask all the questions. And I think that being able to be vulnerable and humble and say, hey, I don't know these things, and be open to learning at all costs. You have to be able to eat that humble pie. You're not going to know everything walking in the door, especially when you've been doing the same thing for years and then you're moving into something new. So I absolutely agree that taking it a bite at a time, taking it one day at a time, and being willing to learn on a daily basis is the fastest way that you're going to grow. Because there's no switch. Right? There's no button.
Yeah, there's no button. And really, probably the closest thing to a button is, do I keep my prideful self of being like, well, I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to ask the silly question. That's really the switch. Like, you can't turn yourself into the person you want to be at the finish line tomorrow, but you can really open the door to starting that by turning the pride off and being like, well, I'm here to learn, right? And everyone knows. So, like, who am I fooling by staying storm in a meeting where I need to ask a question? Like, I'm really only cheating myself, and I'm really sort of, I'm not giving the company the best version of me by not asking and not letting myself learn. So I think that was the moment. Just being like, well, nobody here thinks that I'm, some cerebral genius who's just going to walk in and work at the same level as everybody else. They all know I'm here to grow. Well, it's stupid for me to not take that opportunity, and to be too prideful to take that opportunity. That would be really dumb. Because, I don't know. I live in a town of about 400,000 people. So it's not the biggest town on earth. It's one of the bigger ones on Australia. Like, there's only sort of 20 million people living here, and there's literally 8 towns where there's more than 500,000 people. opportunities just don't grow everywhere here because it's just so
There were
sparse.
more people there. I'm not even gonna.
Yeah.
I thought there were more people in Australia for some reason.
26 million, and I mean, I live in Canberra, which is the capital city, and it's under 500,000. It's not a big place, and so a job like this doesn't come up either. So if I'm going to waste this, where am I going to get another one like this as well? So I've put the pressure on myself to just shut up, turn off prideful voice, and be right to learn, because it's only going to make me better later instead of me trying to look all smart and clever now, even though in here I'm being like, what just happened?
So as you are going through this process of really settling in to the new thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Aside from, turning off the prideful parts, what kinds of preparation do you feel like you have to make on a regular basis to kind of keep yourself in check when your pride does show, or when you start feeling like you're a little bit out of your depth?
Yeah, it's a tough line too, because I think I definitely have this version of myself, right, that I want to project to be like, well, I'm here to grow, and clearly I'm a clever enough person to be here, so I don't want to look dumb, but I also have to realize that everyone here is more experienced than me in this business because they've all been here and they've all lived through, I don't know, COVID here was definitely a very different thing to what it was in some countries too. But I mean, we suffered a lot of the same things. The business I work for has got a lot of different little public faces, and a lot of them are based in hospitality. So all that gets shut down. Some of it's in food production. Great, that can keep going. And a lot of what I do has to do with on-selling the food production stuff. So, a lot of the folks there have been really stable in their job for a while. And for me to come in above a bunch of these people, I've never worked in food production. I'm a salesperson who's now got to be like an account manager sort of, salesperson. It really is, I guess, it's a weird line to be like, well, I've got to present myself as somebody who really does belong as being someone who can direct, even though all of you know so much more on a day-to-day basis what you're doing than I do. And I'm just going to be in here asking a ton of questions. But when I say that I think this is the way I think things should run, well, unless you pull me up on it and say, okay, let me give you some more context, then that's going to be my best shot and it's going to be my best guess. And it's a difficult thing to be like, well, how do I tell all these really experienced people from my unqualified position, given what I've seen, that's the direction I want you to go? It's been an interesting sort of balance on that, because you also want to incorporate the teamwork angle of it being, well, you guys know better than me.
Yes,
but you don't want to give away all the credibility of being like, yeah, but the decision ultimately rests with me. And when I call it, you guys have got to be confident I'm making a good call.
Right.
Tricky line.
So how do you go from unqualified or feeling as if, because you're qualified to some respect because you got the job. So how do you go from feeling unqualified to now feeling confident or comfortable in your position about the decisions that you have to make, knowing that as a manager, a team lead, a person who's over so many people who are looking to you for direction, how do you go from that, feeling unqualified on your first day to now feeling confident? Like, at what point do you feel like you'll be confident, qualified in that space?
Oof. I feel like it could still take some time, I think really the best thing I could do, and I learned this lesson as a younger guy in a previous career as well, is that I'd stepped into a place where I was going to be managing a team of super experienced people, and I was this plucky young go-getter who was, all drunk on the company juice pretty much, and worked for a supermarket chain, and they moved me out to this regional town where people had just worked there because it was one of the really nice stable jobs you could have. Okay. And the prospect of getting other work was smaller, so people just stayed. And then I roll into town, 9 years experience or whatever, being like, right, I'm going to manage this team. How long have you all been here? And you get around the room of 7 people, and it's like, wow, you've got 128 years experience. Whoa, even the least tenured of you has more experience than me, and I've got to lead you. All right, this is more about me developing than it is about me leading. And I think that was kind of the approach I had to take here, is to go, right, so who are the people who've got the most punch in the facility I'm walking into? What's their experience like? What do I learn from them? how do I use their credibility to help me have credibility amongst the team below them?
Mm-hmm.
And be a little vulnerable with these people to show them that I'm here to learn, but also still have I come from a really corporate and professional background. And when we make a call, we need to have confidence in it.
Right.
We need to have confidence in it. So before I make the call, we need to talk about it and make it a teamwork decision, even if I'm the voice of it. And that's been my approach so far. I don't know if it'll come back to bite me in the butt.
If you've been this successful,
we're working on it. But in lack of experience, I just, without all the experiences that people who work with me have, I don't have that experience. To me, it would seem foolish to not lean on their experience.
That's true. And I feel like sometimes when I talk to people who, go into these roles that are fairly new to them, leveraging that vulnerability is something that's not even in their toolkit. And I know that going into most roles, especially in leadership, there has to be a level of vulnerability, not where you are, relinquishing all of your thoughts, feelings, and ideas to your team, but just enough to let them know that, yeah, I bleed. Yeah, I don't know everything, but I can be confident in this thing. Showing that you care, and you like, yes, I'm human. I know what it's like to have a family. I know what it's like to work late or to do this. We have people, running the business, and people have lives outside of the business. I understand that as a human being, and I'm going to give you that respect. But as a manager, it's also important to build that that team camaraderie and that confidence in you as a manager. So what are some strategies that you use to not just project your image of what you feel you should be projecting to a team, but how do you then also build confidence from between yourself and your team so that your team can look to you and say, yeah, Matty's got it. I can trust him. I can take this to him and do it.
Yeah, look, and I think that's 100% it, isn't it? It's just you've got to be all humans, don't you? The team I work with is not a big team, and a lot of it is folks who are literally handling and processing meat. Someone who runs a part of the admin for it, and someone who's really sort of chief of the building that does all the. It's a smokehouse sort of building, so they're smoking bacon and salmon and all these delicious things. It's truly wonderful to be selling bacon as a as a bloke who likes meat. It's a great job. And I think to make these folks feel like, especially the administrative role and the chief smoker, the person who's making all the decisions around, what products they're formulating, about what their team and their facility is capable of doing. I think you've really got to show them that they've got an avenue to have their voice heard by bigwigs at, the big office block. Because, these people are working in a separate facility and they can feel siloed off. Right. And I think it's like this in a lot of businesses too. If you're in finance, I bet you that there's just different little breaks in the way the greater business works, where people don't feel connected to what each other are doing. And they feel like maybe just because of where they work, they're misunderstood and they don't have a voice. And what they do is so different to what maybe a majority of other parts of the business do. So maybe they feel like they just don't get the same consideration. And that was really my first strategy, I guess, is to say to them, well, if you feel like what happens over in the, in the main office, you guys feel so detached from that. I'm over there often. I'm over here often. I'm our voice. I'm not your voice. I'm our voice. And just kind of made it all about it being a team, and that no one person's getting the credit for stuff. We are doing stuff. We are talking about it. We are getting the credit for it. Smokehouse gets the credit for doing this. Not Matty, not Chester, not Fee, not anyone in the team. We, the smoke, and just turning it into a team environment like that. So they felt heard, and that all of a sudden they felt like they had an avenue to get, I guess, to get the credit for the good things they do, and for people to understand how what they do is important to the business.
So it sounds like you have a tried and true method to get into these positions of just like, well, I know how to build the confidence between myself and the team. And then knowing, I guess the hardest part is essentially getting out of our own heads and breaking down because here's the thing about leveling up. When you move to a different character, you grow into that different character. There's all these nerves, all this excitement, and then boom, you're a different person, right? But you've rehearsed who you were so much that now you're almost unrecognizable. And so
you get so much comfort in being in the same space all the time, right? You just get so much comfort from that because you know the boundaries of it.
And when you get out of your comfort and you get into a new space where now you may have the opportunity to really spread your wings or try something different or be in a new position or experience something new, you really don't recognize the person who you are. So then I think that's a great opportunity to kind of build a new image of yourself. You get to pick and choose what you want to take with you when you get to that new space. Have you ever considered what new things you want to take to a new space or the things that you would rather leave behind when you have gone through this growth phase before?
Oh, 100%. Just because I was so conscious of what I wanted to leave behind when I left the old place and coming to this new place, what I wanted to be able to do. And I guess it's just, there's a bit of luck involved with some of this too, I think, because timing, I think, gets a lot of credit for some things. Like that it doesn't necessarily, I don't know how to better put this. Maybe I should start that sentence again and say, sometimes people will take credit for something that happens, even though a lot of it is just due to timing, and that they could put in the same work and just because the timing is off, not get the same result.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the other way around, you could be doing the right thing lots and then just see someone else do the right things, and just the timing works for them better. And it's and in my specific instance here, I came into this essentially just looking to leave the old place, realizing I had just outgrown that place and that I needed something new. I just was too comfortable in that four walls. I just needed something new. And I was happy to essentially come to the new place and just do the same kind of job. But they valued straight away the corporate background and all the really structured training I had for being in this family-run business that didn't have a lot of that. And they're like, oh, we would like to level you up, essentially. They sort of said that to me, and I mean, I don't know how many ways companies really have to show somebody how valuable you are to them, but to say, oh, we are desperate for someone with the knowledge like you've got. We're desperate so much that we'll give you a few more perks in your package, and we'll look after you in a few financial ways, and we'll give you some space to set this up pretty well how you want to do it with a few checks and balances along the way. I just don't know how many other ways there are for a company to show you that they're confident in you. And that's kind of the break-free moment, right? Isn't it? To be like, and that couldn't have happened any other. I can't think of any other way that could have happened than me just being the lucky chump who got this job, and then just getting off to the start that I did with them, where they're like, "Oh, we can see that's valuable." I can't take too much credit for that because I could have got a job at a very different place, done the exact same things, and just still be, doing essentially the same job I was doing at the old place. Still probably would have been happy enough because I just needed the new scenery.
Yeah.
But it's just been so lucky in a lot of ways because of the timing. So I guess that's in my mind too, that this outrageous piece of luck to just arrive in a place that was really looking for someone to bring that also plays into it a bit too.
I think that's true. I think when we consider things as far as moving up or breaking out or going to a different place, that timing does play a huge role. That's why I think it's really important that we consider our circle. We consider the people who we keep around us, who our networking contacts are, because you never know when the skill set that you have, whether you've used it in a set like that or not, could be seen just as valuable to someone else. Like, even though my background is in finance, I also have a background in education, but my background also works well with business strategy. So I could be a business strategist, and I didn't know I could until I was doing it, and I was just like, "That's all this is." I thought this was actual
moment.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. Like, you just don't know what you're capable of until someone challenges you on it, or says, "Hey, I like your skill set. I want you to work for me. We'll pay you handsomely. We'll take care of you. We just want you to make our company as great as you can make it with the skill set that you have."
It's a wonderfully validating thing then, isn't it? To be like, all of a sudden find too that, like you were saying there, actually didn't know totally transferable skills into being a business strategist. Just something I can do on a weekend because I've got this.
Yeah.
Moonlight as a business strategist, which sounds damn fancy, to be honest. But isn't that the brilliant thing? Like, you're saying this too around the idea of limiting, like, just the limitations you put on yourself to go, well, I'm only capable of doing this much because I just don't know more. I haven't been experienced enough to put myself in the shoes of the person who makes that decision often. Or you're 100% right. You just don't even really know. You just don't even know what you're capable of.
True.
I kind of like that. The idea of, I heard somebody describe it this way, that people will work up to the point that they're not competent. People don't work down to the part where they're like, oh, I'm not very clever, I'll only work at this level. People continue to go up and up and up in corporations or in government departments or whatever it might be until they hit a point where they actually can't work at a level higher than that, and they're probably doing a job that might be a little tricky for them if they stay long enough to do that. And that's your point of incompetence. And I heard it put that way, and I thought, that's kind of a little sad, but I get it. Like, I 100% get it. But until you take those steps, you just don't know what that level is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a horrible way to put it. Oh, you work up until the point where you actually hit your threshold of competence. I think it's a horrible term to put it.
Well, I mean,
it makes sense. It's very black and white, but
it's so if you were to say the same thing about cooking, right? A lot of people have some basic, like, they know what a kitchen is. Like, let's start there. A lot of people know what a kitchen is. Not everybody knows how to boil an egg, but they know where to go to do that. But with knowing how competent you are or where you're going to go, I have my sister is a trained chef in Le Cordon Bleu, and she can make all these like really extravagant, complicated meals. I'm good for a solid breakfast. I can make a decent dinner. Everything will be edible. Like, the kids may like it. It's going to be good, but that's like I've reached almost to the point of how much I'm going to dedicate to learning how to cook. Like, that's kind of where my competency threshold is. And it transfers its way in all aspects of our lives. And that's why I think that's why it's important to know what your skills can transfer into. Because even though in one position or one company, you can only go up to a level 4 or level 5, and then everything else is above you. But if you were to transfer those skills and maybe go to either a different side of the company or even a different industry, you may be able to go level 7 or 8 just because you have these skills that can transfer back and forth. So if you know how to count, you know how to talk, you know how to deal with people, conflict mediation, how to the basic skills of carpentry or whatever the case, by knowing how to transfer those skills between different industries. Just because you're only at a level 5 for a certain industry doesn't mean that you're only going to be level 5 across all industries, because your skills
That's a
can put
beautiful thought.
you in different places.
Oh, I really love that. That's a
Yeah,
wonderful thought.
yeah, it doesn't have to be so, and because what you said is absolutely true. Some people will work up to their competency levels. They'll keep working up until they hit a point of, yeah, this is about as hard as I can get in this industry.
Yeah.
But if you transfer them over, or they realize how their skills are transferable, and that's what I'm into teaching people: transferable skills. Please learn how to talk to people so you know how to talk about your skills in different industries. But
so great.
Knowing that is going to make you more marketable across industry. So if you want to come from finance to education, or education to what's another industry, to the fashion industry, to real estate, whatever the case, there are skills in all of those that have like a golden thread that you can say, well, I have these skills and I'm going to use it here. Now, since the industries are different, there's different terminology, different things, different patterns that you're going to have to know about the industry. But because your core skills are solid, you'll be able to be put in any place and flow like water.
Oh, that's a lovely thought. I mean, the idea that you're only just learning a language away from potentially just changing your threshold of what you can work.
Exactly.
Because that's all it is. I mean, it's just a language. It's not, every business has its success markers. And if all you got to do is train your brain, whatever the industry, train your brain to go, oh, well, so the old success marker was called, XYZ. This success marker over here is called ABC. That's all it is. It's just changing my brain from going XYZ to ABC. I can do that. Oh, that's brilliant.
And if you're in a constant state of...
Mate, you've shaken up my snow globe. That's what you've done. It's going to take hours to sift and settle down and realize what you've just done to my brain, I think.
Well, it's a great thought, because whether or not you're in this position for a year or 30, you know that you have the ability to learn this language, be confident in this language. And then if you wanted to, you can learn a new one, because you're just that skilled. You have the skills to do that. And it doesn't matter how...
You've got the evidence of seeing yourself do it, so believe it, right? Isn't this just all the way back? We're just going full circle. It's
absolutely, yes. And we have to, because that's what I think is important. We have to kind of break what the image we see, because the image that we project versus the image that we see versus the image that other people see are entirely different images. Like the reality versus the projection versus the perception, it's all completely different. So when we learn how to align those a little bit closer, they may not always match up perfectly, but when we learn to align those a little closer, and even if you have to, what I'm finding in my position is I have to borrow a little bit of the confidence from my manager. She's like, oh my gosh, you're great for this position. You're this, you're that. And I'm just like, sure. And she's just like, I know that the skills that you have, because honestly, they weren't even going to look at my resume because I'm in a different state. But the recruiter was so excited about my resume that she called the manager. The manager was like, if she's qualified, let's talk to her. And the manager talked to me, and during the interview, she was super excited. And then when I got hired on, she was just really happy with the work that I have done previously, that she was excited to bring those skills. And I was just like, I was talking about it like I was brushing my teeth. Oh yeah, I get up in the morning, just brush my teeth, and that's what I do. But that's exactly those skills are what she was looking for. So I had to borrow a little bit of her confidence for the first month or so to believe that she believed that I knew what I was doing and that this was a great fit. And now I'm really buying into the propaganda that Leah may be a good fit for this role.
The state-sponsored advertising to you. Oh, yes, you fit. We want you.
Right. We want you.
Oh, the idea of borrowing confidence. This is a terrific thought. I haven't thought of this before, but the idea of borrowing confidence from the person who's like your champion, the person who's
Yeah.
championing you. Oh, I love that. I really, really
I
love
have
that.
to look. Whenever I talk to my parents are like, no, you got it. Or I talk to my siblings and they're like, yeah, you got it.
Oh,
I'm just going to borrow some of you guys' confidence because I don't have it right now. Oh, Lord.
I just really love that idea. I mean, so the wife and I often talk about stuff like this too, about, roles and what people's strengths are, and then exposing each other to things that we know are actually our strengths, but just to kind of show them what you're up to in the family. Like the family dynamic, I guess, is kind of like its own company,
Right.
right? I don't know. This is how I think about things anyways. Our family is its own little company. And for it to work well, the wife and I both need to know our roles, be comfortable in what we are asking each other to do, even if we don't necessarily want to do it, just recognizing that we're the person for that role.
Right.
And also being realistic that the other person can't just step into your role and just do your role. They're only ever acting if you're not there. And it's just, the idea of borrowing confidence off each other, I think, would really play well into our next, board meeting on a corporation. I just love that idea.
No, borrowing confidence from people who are, your champion, people who are your cheerleaders, people who vouch for you. That kind of confidence is very contagious. Because at first you're not really sure, but if they believe it enough and they know me well enough to believe that thing, then I'm like, there might be a chance this could work. And just knowing that they believe in me gives me that extra push of just like, I'm just going to try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least I tried it. And then now that I've tried it and I've seen it work, now my brain is like, see, it could work.
Oh,
and so now I get to reinforce.
See, we told you.
Yeah, see, exactly.
I'm one of these people though. And this is another spare time activity that I do where it's the same thing. Take big task, break it into tiny pieces, find ways to track my progress, like we were talking about earlier. That's just how my brain is happy.
Yes.
And one of my spare time activities is distance running and marathon running. And it's always, okay, take the end goal. End goal, run marathon in 4 months' time. What do I do for the next 4 months? Well, I break it all the way down into 4 months of little exercises to slowly build myself to get there. And then I heard somebody put it this way, and I can never get it out of my head. Somebody was talking to me about the idea of planning your goal in a way that if you could break the steps down to be small enough, you actually guaranteed the success because each step is so attainable. You can't miss. You can't miss. And then the day that the goal is due is actually, it's the victory lap. It's the victory lap for the work you put in to climb that staircase. And I'm just addicted to that thought. I'm obsessed with it. Just obsessed with it. And the last couple of marathons I've done, I've honestly gotten to the start line thinking, oh, I'm about, when the gun goes, it's actually my finish line. And I'm about to spend 4 hours doing my victory lap. And I've been trying to copy that idea into professional life a little bit, as much as I can, because, I mean, businesses have their own pace, and you don't always get to set it the way you get to set your own training schedule for something that's, recreational.
Correct.
The same idea of what's the end goal? What's the most audacious end goal that's realistic? And then how do I break this thing down into steps so small it's not a question of can I complete the steps? It's just a question of doing them. Am I going to do them? Yes. Then I'm going to be successful. I'm just addicted to that idea. It's just, I'm obsessed.
You know what? That's a really good way to think about things because a lot of times we don't do things because we don't have a guaranteed outcome. And when we think of it as it's either going to be success or failure, sometimes we can reduce what we're doing as some arduous task that's going to take all of the energy and the power of God and moving of mountains and the dividing of, whatever for us to be able to get to this goal. But being able to microtask your way to success.
Yeah.
That is such a good thought because then your only question is, do I want this? And if you wake up every day wanting to achieve that thing, you're guaranteed success in the sense of, I'm doing these tasks, I'm doing this thing to, in the marathon example, I want to be able to complete a full marathon. Whether that looks like completing it for an event or doing it on your own, you want to be able to do those things. So I'm going to train, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to make sure that I have the support. What do I do when I don't feel motivated? Who can I turn to? Who's going to make sure that they light a fire under me to keep me going?
Yeah.
Making sure that your motivation checkpoints are still there. Because, listen, by day 6, the motivation is going to leave, and I need somebody else to like come and give me some confidence so I can keep going. So it's being able to microtask your way to success is such a cool thought to really guarantee yourself success, so that you're not struggling with, is this possible? It's more so, do you want it? And if you want it, then absolutely it's possible.
Oh,
so
yeah. For me, I just know that that's how my brain's happy is. Break things down, scoreboard it, gives you constant checks on what your progress is like versus large end goal. And not everyone's brain is just happy doing that all the time. I just know that my brain likes that. But I think everyone's brain likes doing that on some things.
Yeah.
Surely.
Being able to see a positive progress bar, absolutely.
I know that you're making steps towards it. I think it depends on what the end goal is, but I really think that everybody gets motivated by something that can be a stretch goal that they can work towards. So I think it's something that everyone could probably do if it was something that's in their own recreational time, their own spare time.
Yeah.
Personal improvement goal, whatever it might be. It might not be a professional thing. But I don't know. I just had someone mention the idea one day of breaking things down to that sort of level and then being like, so then it's just, have you got the will?
Yeah.
I thought, wow, wouldn't that be great? The more things you can do that with in life, because if it's a stretch goal like that, it's already important to you. If you're already saying to myself, well, I'm willing to carve out 6 months of my life to do this, it's already important to you.
Right.
I just got obsessed by that whole idea. And I mean, I continually do these things in my life too. The idea of, the stupid podcast I run is all about this fantasy football league. And all that is week by week for 13 weeks, just trying to find ways to make sure my team is a little bit better. Training for marathons, same thing, week by week, just putting some effort, putting it out there, taking what comes back from it and being like, all right, so what do I need to change? How's my progress? It's sales is all the same. Oh, let's go out and see these 25 customers this week. What positive conversations did I have? What gains did I get? What do I have that I can come back and go back to market a different way with? What did I need to follow up? All of them, they're essentially, I'm just doing the same process over and over again in about, 10 different projects at once in my life. Because that's just what makes my brain happy.
If you find something that works, you stick with it. That's how I live my life. When you find something that works, you stay with it the entire time.
Yes, but it took me 30-something years to work this out. So I've only been the beneficiary of it for about 4 years. So
at least it didn't take you 86. Look, we're making progress already. Okay, we're making progress
very
already.
Grateful.
Yes, and now you can teach your kids so that your kids are not spending 30 years of their life. Well, Dad, how did you figure this out? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Why isn't this working?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell anyone who stood still long enough. And I honestly think you're talking about your interview process for the role you've got now. And honestly, this is a lot like the conversation I had in my interview process where they're like, so what makes you suitable for the role? I'm like, if the role's sales and you are just trying to grow revenue and you're trying to, grow rate from your revenue as well. So you can be, make more money, but also, sell more things, but also make a little bit more money off them. My brain's geared for this. This is all my brain wants to do is, set me a goal. Oh, well, I'll find ways to improve it. I'll tweak. I'll go out to market, see if it works. And if it fails, come back, tweak it again, go back. My brain is just all about that. And just having the same conversation with them. And I think they were just kind of really interested in the idea that someone was self-aware enough about it to be like, oh, he just gets what he is.
Yeah, I like this guy. I like the cut of your chin. That's what I like.
Jim, oh, you got all old-timey on me there. I like that.
This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Matty. I appreciate you.
This has been so great. Because we kind of came into this going, oh, so what are we going to talk about today?
Right.
We filled an hour.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you.
Oh, absolutely. So my podcast is nowhere near as deep and interesting as this. So firstly, be prepared to check your brain at the door a little bit. Let me give you a quick background. My podcast, it's an American fantasy football based podcast. We're 16 guys living in Australia who a lot of us played for the same American football team based here in my town in Canberra. And that team folded and it just became this fantasy football league. We've been at it for 12 seasons, and this is the latest evolution of what's happening in our league as we've turned it into a podcast. But also, I think the cool thing about that is we've just run into other fantasy football leagues doing the same sort of thing. We've run into folks who just kind of find it funny that Australians are talking American football too. So if American football is your thing, if fantasy football is your thing, I just urge you to come and just check in one of our shows. It's a half hour that you'll either love or hate, probably like Vegemite. But come on and check it out. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram at AstroLeague Podcast. We're also on Twitter at AstroLeague Pod. And then we're on every podcatcher in the universe at AstroLeague Podcast.
Cool. Y'all make sure to go check out Matty C. And do you have two other co-hosts with you, or is that only sometimes?
Okay. Oh yeah. So sadly, I'm kind of the I'm kind of the truck that pulls the trailer on this one. But the guys in the trailer are an absolute hoot. So my buddy Taylor, he's a big enigmatic character, and he comes on and he makes wild and outrageous calls, and then he comes back and owns up to them. He'll be back with us really, really soon. He's just sort of moved his family to a different town, and he's been a bit busy, but he'll be back soon. And I think everyone has got to love this one. My mate Seahorse, who lives in Tasmania. This sounds like a cartoon, I know. But my mate Seahorse, he's a consultant by trade. So his whole thing is to analyze things and offer considered advice. And he's much more the straight guy, where Taylor's really brash. So the three of us are all rather different. And my buddy Marky Mark is starting to appear on more episodes too, as a bit more of a savant and a historian. So we're all kind of bringing something different to the show. And sadly, I'm the mainstay. I'm in every episode. So if you're finding me hard to put up with this accent, you're going to have a tough time. But at least we're honest about it.
Look, I think it's a great time. Y'all make sure y'all go check out AstroLeague and check out Matty C and his crew. I have absolutely appreciated this conversation. The only sad thing is that I took so long to have it. Honestly, that's the only sad thing. But I'm glad that we've been able to have this conversation. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Pod. Again, my name is Leah, joined by Matty C of AstroLeague. Please make sure to go follow us at Take a Space Pod. That's Take a Space POD on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We go live the Thursday after this airs, and hopefully we'll be able to have Matty back. I know that you are on opposite times of the day for us, but if you're able to join, hopefully you'll be back for that. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye.